Peacock Feathers by Temple Bailey. Book 2, Mimi. Chapter 5. 1. So I entered the big city of the Mississippi, a boy seeking his fortune, not as in the old days with a bundle tied on a stick and a shilling in my pocket, but coming nonetheless to my adventure with high hopes and an eager sense of worlds to conquer. I had taken a room in a family hotel well out in the West End, where Lionel lived with his father. The price had seemed to me prohibitive, but Lionel had insisted that I must be near him. When the play was accepted, he assured me there would be money enough and to spare. My training in thrift had made me unwilling to spend unless I knew how I was to meet expenses. I was aware that I need expect no increase in my allowance from Uncle Jerry. His letters had of the late lacked the easy optimism of earlier days. Cattle raising, he said, was not all that it used to be. The ranges were more and more restricted as the land was taken up. His income was, for the moment, much reduced. Yet even with this, he spoke of investments which promised big returns, so that any fears I might have had for my future were dispelled. Nothing could shake my confidence in Uncle Jerry's financial stability as the owner of vast acres. I could not think of him as anything less than as a landed proprietor with wealth flowing towards him on a golden tide. I felt, however, that this was the moment for the grand gesture. The doors of a new life were opening to me. I must not close them by an exaggerated parsimony. For a few weeks, at least, I would eat and drink and be merry with the rest of them. Tomorrow must take care of itself. Lionel met me at the train, and we took a taxi to the hotel. He was overflowing with enthusiasm. The play was the thing. He had had talks with agents, managers, actors. I realized, even as he told me, that none of them had made definite offers. They would be glad to read the play, and that was all. But if they read it and don't like it, I demanded, what then? They will like it. Styles Sanderson says the third act of yours will carry it. I was not so sanguine. I was indeed a better critic of my own work than Lionel. I knew that the play had merits, but I knew too that it lacked sustained power. But I was glad to be deceived into believing that Lionel was right, and that we were on our way to fame and fortune. I was indeed ready to believe anything on that gay morning as I rode through the streets of the town which harbored Mimi. It was early in September, and the languorous warmth of the summer season lingered. The women on the streets still wore their thin dresses, and the leaves which had fallen were a pale yellow, so that they lay drifted across the sidewalks like faint sunshine. Lionel had made many engagements for me. We were to dine that night with Olga. She asked all the crowd that we met at the camp, "You are very popular with the ogre, Jerry." She told Mimi that you were the only one who treated her as a human being and not as a stuffed doll to stick pins in. Not bad, was it? I didn't think she had it in her. He laughed lightly. Neither then or even after would he give Olga her due as a rather fine and intelligent creature. She had stolen his money. He could see no virtue in a thief. We go to Bernice's this afternoon for tea. Mimi will be there, and Styles and Catherine, and a lot of the others. They are all crazy about you, Jerry. Bernice says it is because you are so remote as one of the old knights in medieval legends. She insists that you ought to wear silver armor. What nonsense! Yet I liked it. Lionel surveyed me with a meditative eye. I'm not sure that it's nonsense. You are a sort of reincarnation, Jerry. You have the spirit of another age. It isn't outside of you, it is inside. I fancy it's the result of the way you were brought up. I don't see that I am so different from the rest of you. Well, you are. Sanderson says it is genius. He told me flatly that I didn't have half your gift of writing, that I am a farthing dip to your torch. But I am not willing to admit it. Was it any wonder that all this went to my head, that I was drunk with it, swayed from my normal balance? Our spirits were at top-notch. The whole world seemed to glow and sparkle as we whirled up at last to the hotel. As soon as I was alone in my room, I called up Mimi. A woman's voice answered, a charming voice, but not Mimi's. I asked for Miss Lebrun. She's not at home. Is there any message? Will you tell her that Jerry Chandler called? Did I fancy it, or did a breath of coolness deaden the warmth of that charming voice? I will tell her. The hours that followed seemed to me empty, although Lionel took me to his father's club for lunch. It was an uptown club, and at this hour most of the men whom we saw were a leisurely group who had either inherited fortunes or had made them, and whose days were spent in killing time. They seemed creatures of another sphere from that in which dwelt my father and Uncle Jerry. They were well-groomed, middle-aged, most of them, but wearing their years jauntily, witty, travelled. Yet I was to find them a bit stagnant when I knew them better, for they touched only the nearest seas of the shores of life and never sailed it. But I was sailing it, with a fair wind and spread canvas, towards Mimi. My impatience to see her was almost unbearable. After our luncheon, Lionel and I motored through the park. Ascending by the long, circling approach, a hill crowned with a stately building, we came at last upon a statue which overlooked the city. And such a statue! Other centers of population may proclaim in marble the achievements of their patriots and statesmen and the glories of the past. It remains for St. Louis to set on her highest hill the figure of a saint. Never anywhere else had I seen a thing so symbolic. Never anywhere the glorious reach of imagination which placed above the smoke and clamor, above the busy streets, the skyscrapers, the clanging trolleys, this knight in armor, leading men onward and upward beyond the strife and the struggle. I was thrilled by it, and by the sweep from east to west of that Middle Western metropolis where once had been the stockade of a trading post. I knew you'd like it, Lionel said. I wanted you to have it on your first day. It was there we met, my friend and I, in that lift of our hearts towards all that was beautiful. Coming down, we passed a lake with swans on it, crossed a bridge, and took a shaded road overhung by great trees. And under the trees, riding slowly and deep in conversation, were two people on horseback. The man was tall, and the girl's hair under her stiff had blazed in the sun. It is Fowler and Mimi, Lionel said, and stopped the car as we reached them. Mimi turned in her saddle and saw me, and the light leaped up in her eyes. I needed nothing more than that. Even Fowler's half-insolent greeting, "So you've turned up again, Chandler," could not rob me of the rapture of the moment. It was perhaps to punish his insolence that Mimi said, "I want to talk to you, Terry. Andy, will you take my horse back to the stable? I'll ride in Lionel's car to Bernice's and meet you there." Fowler laughed, and it was not a pleasant laugh. "Do you think I'm going to let you desert me like that?" "I'm not deserting you, but I haven't seen Jerry for weeks." Yet I could see that she hesitated, and her next words were a compromise. "I'll ride back with you, and Lionel can pick up both of us at the stables." He agreed to that, and she waved her hand to me and was off. And then Lionel said, "She doesn't dare push Andy too far." What could he do if she did? "Heaven knows. Lock her up in a tower," he laughed. "She's afraid of him." "Why should she be? We don't live in the Dark Ages." "Well, she can't afford to lose him, yet I don't believe she is in the least bit in love with him." I hated that. It seemed to smudge Mimi with a kind of worldliness which soiled the whiteness of my dreams of her. Lionel's words cast a shadow across the bright beauty of the day. Yet when at last we came upon her waiting, I forgot everything in the joy of the moment. "I called you up," I told her, under cover of the noise of Lionel's quick chatter as he talked to the somewhat sullen Andy. "I thought you might. Did Mother answer?" Someone answered who had a charming voice. "Mother is charming, but I might as well tell you now, Jerry. She's your bitter enemy." "My enemy?" incredulously. She nodded. "Oh, Andy has stuffed her with a lot of things. That you are dangerous to my peace of mind and to his, and that you may interfere with all the well-laid plans for my future. He has Mother on his side absolutely." The thing loomed as a tragedy. "Do you mean that the latch string won't be out?" "Oh, no. I made a bargain with Mother. I told her I wouldn't go anywhere with Andy unless I could entertain you in my own house, and you are to come Sunday night for supper. The crowd will be there. I always have informal things. Our apartment isn't big enough for anything else, and big things cost a lot." I hardly heard her. My mind was on her mother. "I'm not sure that I care to go where I am not wanted." "If I want you, isn't that enough?" She was very lovely as she leaned towards me. "More than enough, my dear." "Oh, Jerry, you mustn't call me that. You mustn't count on anything. I'm a will-o'-the-wisp. I never know my own mind." Quick tears came to her eyes. "I'll make you know it, Mimi." At that moment I could have died for her. I had no fears. The tears in her eyes were enough for me. 2. Bernice's home was charming. There were old portraits, French furniture in gilt and faded rose, pale carpets, long mirrors. Bernice's mother in faint blue was a part of the picture. She was the first of those vivacious, youthful-looking mothers of whom I was soon to see so many. Her hair was touched with grey, but was waved and puffed into an elaborate coiffure. She poured the tea and made me sit beside her. She had very clear, dark eyes, and I felt that they weighed me, that she knew I did not belong to that drawing-room with its old portraits and French furniture. So clairvoyant did she seem that I was gripped by the fear that she might see, as in a crystal ball, the background of my boyhood's days, that bare simple parsonage. Neither then nor ever after was I at my ease with her, and I do not think she tried to set me at my ease. She was one of the women to whom the fact that her grandmothers had brought their ball gowns from the old world was a matter of immense importance. She felt separated by impregnable barriers from all those whose grandmothers had not worn ball gowns. The tea table was set with heavy old silver on a silver tray, and there were all sorts of delicious things to eat, muffins and tiny sandwiches and fragile French cakes. It was a new function to me. Tea in our town had been the evening meal, the hearty supper. At college I had been invited to few houses. It was to me a rare and exciting experience to be one of this gay and sparkling group. So it was with something of a shock that I heard Styles Sanderson say, when I drifted over to him a little later, "You should never have come here, Jerry." "Why not?" "Oh, we shall spoil you. This isn't your atmosphere. You got your gifts in less complicated surroundings." Instead of sending you to the city, the gods should have transported you to the top of a high mountain. You might have given a song to the world, but they'll stop your singing." Catherine Merrill was listening. "Why don't you talk plain English, Styles? What he means, Cherry," she explained patiently, "is that with us you'll gamble on the green. It is much better than piping alone on the top of a mountain." "Is it?" Styles demanded. "I wonder if Cherry will find it so." Bernice came over just then and took me away, so I left them to argue it out alone. But years later, when the conversation recurred to me, I knew that while in some ways Styles was right, I was glad that the gods had taken me to the city. Bernice carried me off to a little card room beyond the drawing room. "I simply must talk to you, Jerry," she said, and I saw with surprise that she looked anxious and worried. "What is it?" I asked. "Lionel." She paused and plunged in. "I simply must talk to somebody about him, and you are to be with him all this winter. Jerry, is the play going to be a success, is it?" I hardly knew how to answer her. "I hope it may." "Oh, it's got to be. Lionel is depending so much on it. He is spending more money than he should, and Father has heard of it, and he's furious. He told me last night that if Lionel didn't pull up, he wouldn't let me marry him." The vision of the clear-eyed figure in faint blue made me ask, "What does your mother say?" "She agrees with Father. She adores Lion's family, and she isn't hard on his sins. But his grandfather's death made a great difference. Dad's not willing to give us a large enough allowance to live on. He says that Lionel must dig in and do something for himself." Have you talked to Lion?" "Yes, but you know him, Jerry. He'll never see danger ahead until he's hurt. He doesn't realize that if Father won't give us any allowance, we can't marry." "Why can't you?" The bright color swept her cheeks and throat. "Because, oh, I love him enough, Jerry, to marry him, but he can't take care of a wife without outside help. His tastes are too extravagant." I saw then for the first time the womanliness of her, a womanliness which had been covered by a crust of artificiality. She loved Lionel with a deeper, more self-sacrificing devotion than he gave her, and she knew it. It was not an easy thing for her pride to know. "I thought, Jerry, if you could help, about the play, keep him at it. He's playing cards too, and he loses, and he isn't like himself." I cannot tell you how touched I was by her revelation to me of her deeper nature. We talked it over with the almost pathetic seriousness of youth. I promised that I would do what I could. The card room in which we sat was one in which I was in the days that followed to see Mrs. Barry and her cronies often at bridge. It was a gem of a room, decorated with 3 painted panels of the King and the Queen and the Knave of Hearts. In the powder and perruques of the French court, the little tables were covered with rose-colored baize and had borders of dark rich wood. The gilt chairs were patterned in hearts and diamonds, clubs and spades. The whole thing had been done, it seemed, for one of the ball-gown grandmothers. It was a monument to her frivolity, as well as to her fine sense of beauty. I wondered if the grandmother had ever faced heartache, as this lovely young granddaughter was facing it. Knowing Lionel as I did, and with all my deep affection for him, I could not see him giving happiness to a loving woman. I went back to the drawing room, and for the first time had Mimi to myself. She seemed a boyish figure in her riding clothes among all the delicate feminine frills, but no one matched her beauty. "She is mine," my heart sang, and it was heavenly music. We could talk only of ourselves. There were so many things that she had not told me. I was eager to know what had happened while she was still in Maine, how she and Andy had made up after I left. He acted as if nothing had happened and went right on being nice to me. Do you know what he did with the pin? No. I told her that he had thrown it into the pool. It is like him, she said, and he was in a mood to throw you in after it. I am glad he did not see you. I am as strong as he, I boasted. I should have liked to see him try it. We parted to meet that night at Olga's. The ogre had, Mimi explained, entertained them a lot since they came back, and it wasn't politic to offend her. You'll know why when you see her ballroom. I must confess that the thing jarred. I felt that I would rather never accept Olga's hospitality than to do it as the rest of them did, with a shrug of the shoulder and an air of scorn, as if she owed them more than they asked. 3. That night I saw the peacock portrait. I had arrived at Olga's earlier than the others, for Lionel was to call for Bernice, and I walked over. Olga greeted me with her slow enthusiasm. It's nice to see you. I want to have a talk with you. Can't you stay for a little while after the others go? I promised, and presently, when she was called to the telephone, I strayed through the gorgeous rooms until I came to the balcony which Mimi had described in her letter. The picture hung alone on the wall beyond, flanked by a tapestry or two, and lighted by concealed electric bulbs. Seen thus, it fairly blazed with color. Mimi's arms and neck were bare, and the scant blue of her long bodice melted into a train of peacock feathers. Her face was turned a little so that she looked over her shoulder with a veiled, inscrutable glance. In the banded hair of her proud little head was a high carved comb, which gave the effect of a peacock's crest, and the great fan which she carried was of the same burnished plums. This was not the child Mimi, whose memory I cherished. The artist had given, rather, a hint of what she was to be, the proud lady. Pride was in every line of her. I felt a sudden cold shock of separation. What had I, a crude country boy, to do with this rare creature? How could I ever hope to possess her? The thing was preposterous. Behind me, Olga was saying, "They think I ought to give that to Mimi, but I shan't." "Why not?" She blazed. "Oh, if they had treated me fairly, but from the very first they acted as if the whole thing was my fault. I didn't know that my husband had left them out, not until the will was read. I supposed that of course he had looked after them, but they wouldn't believe it. They think I go round him and influenced him against them, and it has made me obstinate. I am that kind. The picture is mine, and I shall keep it." She had worked herself into a sort of dull fury. "I shall keep it," she said, and led the way back to the drawing-room. The Amidon twins and their satellites had arrived, and after them came shortly all the others I had met in the Maine woods. Yet I was aware of an atmosphere of animosity of which I had not been conscious in the Maine cottage. They had accepted Olga's invitation, but here in the senator's old house she was not one of them as she had been in less formal surroundings. And superadded to this was a sense of Andy's antagonism which he did not attempt to disguise. It showed itself in a dozen ways. In his utter disregard of the fact of my presence. He gave me no greeting when he entered, and as the evening went on, throughout dinner, although he was directly across the table from me, he did not address a word to me. Everybody else was more than kind. They had made delightful plans for me. They wanted me to make engagements for every minute for weeks ahead. I demanded only one thing, that my mornings must be my own. It was that night, I think, I began to feel the pull of a pleasure-filled existence. The contrast was, perhaps, all the greater because of my recent sojourn in the midst of sorrow and of heartbreak. I was glad to put these things behind me. I did not want to forget my mother, but I wanted to forget pain and tragedy and poverty. When we entered the ballroom, the feeling was intensified. It was a wonderful place with its side walls hung in rose brocade and its ceiling painted with rose garlands upheld by cupids. Crystal chandeliers hung low over our heads, giving out 1,000 lovely lights from their pendant prisms. To me it was a fairyland. All the dreams of my boyhood could not match this moment. Mimi, to my great delight, gave me the first dance. Andy glowered, but I was the guest of honor. "And he's been as cross as a bear," Mimi told me. "Even Andy can't spoil my evening," I told her. "Nothing can spoil it. It's Elysium, and you and I are going to dance on forever." Her light, low laughter answered. "Oh, is there anyone like you, Jerry? Everything with you is a great adventure." Did anything matter after that? There were other dances with her, and my rapture increased, so that when the evening was far advanced and she was dancing with Lionel, I wandered away from the others and made my way to the balcony, where I could be alone and feast my eyes on the picture. Now and then some couple drifted out of the ballroom and drifted back again, and looking down upon them I felt that it was all like the scene of a play, with the beat of the music coming faintly off stage. Then, suddenly, Mimi drifted in with Lionel, a slender slip of a thing in silver with a floating scarf of burnished blue. They were both graceful dancers, and the thing was exquisite, the great ballroom beyond as a background, these two slight figures seeming to float over the polished floor. Mimi lifted her eyes and saw me, and behind Lionel's back she blew me a kiss from the tips of her fingers, a lovely, impulsive gesture. Then they drifted back to the ballroom. As I stood there, mad with the joy of it, a hand came down on my shoulder. I turned and faced Andy. "You've got to stop it," he said without preamble. "Stop what?" "Hanging around Mimi." "That is for Mimi to say." "Oh, she won't stop you. She knows how to play the game." I was possessed by a fury which made me want to crack his head open. "Are you talking of the woman you love?" "You know who I am talking about. Mimi isn't any angel, but she's mine. I won't have anyone else butting in." "How are you going to stop me?" I think he hadn't expected that. He had, I am sure, thought of me as a country boy without a code. But I had a code, and I had a strength with which to back it. Not for nothing had I spent years in the open and on those hard physical tasks of the farm. I was more than his match, and I knew it. So I said, "How are you going to stop it?" He came a step nearer. "I give you a fair warning. You're not her kind. You've unlimited nerve to think she'd look at you. She wouldn't if she wasn't trying to make me jealous." I was on my feet now. I spoke quietly, but there was the force of a blow behind each word. "If you speak like that again of Mimi, I'll throw you over this balcony." He saw that I meant it, knew the depth of the fall to that shining floor beneath, hesitated. "Oh, I'm not here to fight," he blustered. "It won't be a fight. I shall drop you into the middle of next week." How queer the old slang sounds now as I write it. But I did not then stop to think of words. "I'm 1,000 times stronger than you are," I said. "You wouldn't have a chance with me. If you don't believe it, get Lionel to tell you my record at college." Oh, I was a fine young cockerel. If I had done what I threatened, I should probably have been locked up before midnight for manslaughter. but he saved me from that. "This isn't the time," he said, "to settle it, but there'll be a time, so it is hands off of Mimi, if you are sensible." He flung himself down the steps, and I saw him making his way towards the ballroom. His next dance was with Mimi, and I don't know what he said to her, but when she said good night, she asked, "What have you done to Andy? He's got it in for you." I was tempted to tell her of the things we had said to each other, but I couldn't spoil the moment. "Oh, he'll get over it," I said lightly. "And why should I care for Andy when I am to see you tomorrow?" As I had promised Olga, I stayed after the others. I did not want to do it. I wanted to wander out under the stars. I was drunk with dreams. But it was not a bad substitute to sit in the Turkish retreat and talk about Mimi. It was a ghastly place, artistically with its black and gold brocade, making a sumptuous background for Olga's pink satin and pearls. But it was cozy in a way, and comfortable. She came at once to the subject which she had on her mind. "So you're in love with Mimi." I flushed. Do I wear it on my sleeve like that? Everybody seems to know it and talk about it. "Oh, well, reticence is old-fashioned. Frankness is the fashion, especially if it is unpleasant. That's why I hate them all." She said it without a particle of vindictiveness, calmly stating a fact. "They haven't held a thing back from me," she went on. "I'm an interloper, and they seem to think there's no reason why they shouldn't tell me so." I did not know what to say. I was uncomfortable. Then suddenly she flung a bomb at my feet. "I want you to marry Mimi." I sat there staring at her. "I mean it," she went on. "I like her better than any of the rest, and I like you, and I hate Mrs. Lebrun. She's set on having Mimi marry Andy, and I'd like to disappoint her. Perhaps I can help you a little." There was, it seemed to me, a touch of treason in her suggestion of an alliance between us. "I haven't any right to hope," I told her. "Yes," she said, "you have." She leaned forward, a sort of pink and ponderous fairy godmother. "She is in love with you, Cherry." 4. The next morning I reviewed my experiences of the past 24 hours. I had intensified Andy's feeling of animosity. I had gained a somewhat unwelcome ally in Olga, and the kiss wafted from Mimi's fingers seemed to me the sign and seal of her surrender. I felt that I must see her, and after breakfast I tried to telephone. Her mother's voice answered. Mimi was still in bed, and she had a busy day before her. Would I call up later? I called up later. Mimi was out. This time a maid answered. She did not know when Miss Lebrun would be in. Being thus thwarted, I tried to write on the play, but my thoughts fled to Mimi. I was restless, unable to keep my mind on words, and words, and words. I gave it up and took a walk. I sauntered down a wide and lovely street with a joyous name, King's Highway. There was an old tune which the name suggested. I hummed it under my breath. Fair and free, night and day. Fair and free is the King's Highway. How the tune fitted the morning. Hark thyself, in wealth to state, empty purse hath careless gait. Thou must watch thy chest and bags, naught has the beggar to lose but rags. Wine for thee, for me a crust, king and beggar, they both are dust, and dust to dust must return some day, e'en as now on the great highway. In this mood, what was more natural than that I should turn towards the street where Mimi dwelt? If I could not see her, I could at least look upon the casket which contained her. Thus I told myself poetically. I had known that she lived in an apartment house, but I had fancied it would be a glorified place, not cast in the mould of ordinary habitations. But it was nothing of the sort. It was a dingy brick, and I was to learn later that the Lebruns were on the 3rd floor, and that one had to walk up 2 flights of stairs, as there was no elevator. I passed the house twice, secure in the thought that, as Mimi was out, there was no one who knew me. The wind was from the east, and the smoke drifting over the city dulled the sunshine. But it could not dull the brightness of the day for me. This unpretentious habitation gave me hope. Surely the time would come when I could provide a finer nest than this. My dreams leap forward. I saw the play a success. I saw other plays. With youth and love, a man might move mountains. I like to think of the boy I was, treading the streets of the old city, of his lightness of heart, of his faith in the future. As I went along, I thought of my father, and I wished that he were by my side. I wanted to hear him speak in his tense, ecstatic voice of the goodness of God. I knew that God was good. Through all these years, he had led me at last to the woman I loved. Turning back again, finally, to the boulevard, I saw coming straight towards me Mimi, walking with her free step and talking to a little woman who pattered along beside her. "Jerry," she said when she saw me, "what are you doing down here?" "Looking up at Juliet's balcony." "Not really," but the pink in her cheeks was lovely. She presented me to the little woman. "Aunt Lucille, this is Jerry Chandler. Mrs. Merrick is helping with my lovely dresses, Jerry. We have been downtown matching some samples. Aunt Lucille made me christening robe, and I hope that some day she will help with my wedding things." The little lady was, I could see at first glance, no ordinary seamstress. She wore old-fashioned and somewhat shabby black, but she wore it with the air of a small princess. She had little feet and little hands, and a straight back. Mimi told me her story afterwards. She was not a blood relation, but she belonged by birth and breeding to that inner circle of which Mimi was a part. She had been a beautiful girl, but had made an unfortunate marriage with a man who had squandered the fortune she had brought him. With a fine pride, she had refused to be dependent. She lived in an ancient house which she owned, and she rented rooms. She was convent-bred and did exquisite things with her needle. Her old friends employed her, and treated her always as one of themselves. "Chérie," she said with a charming twinkle, "I shall not make your wedding clothes unless I like the man you marry." "Then please like me," I implored. She surveyed me with bright, appraising eyes. "You are better than most of them." "Most of them? Are there then so many?" "Too many. She will, I am afraid, go through the forest like the girl in the story and pick up a crooked stick." I smiled at her. "I shall not let her go too far into the forest." She nodded gaily, and I had a feeling that she liked me. "Women don't know what they want, and men must show them." I turned back and walked with them, and when we came to the apartment house, I said, "May I come in?" Mimi hesitated. "I wish I could ask you, but Mother probably isn't up." She answered the telephone. She flashed a quick glance at me. "Did you call me?" "Early, 9 o'clock." She didn't tell me." She was silent for a moment. Then, "Our mornings are dreadfully haphazard. Mother usually has her chocolate in bed about noon." I had never known houses whose mornings were haphazard of mothers who drank their breakfast chocolate at noon. Yet these things seemed to add rather than subtract from the glamour of Mimi's exotic existence. "Must you go in then?" I demanded. "Why not walk a bit with me?" I'd like it, she returned to Mrs. Merrick. Darling, you needn't worry Mother by telling her that Jerry's with me. I never worry your mother by telling her anything, chérie. I shall say that you went back to buy a spool of silk. She was charming with her little air of mystery. For a spool of blue silk, she emphasized. You can get it on Del Mar. We forgot it, did we not? Mimi blew her a kiss. Angel, she said, I wish Mother had your imagination. So on an enchanted errand, Mimi and I swung together down an enchanted street, lined with enchanted houses, marked by enchanted lampposts, and traversed by enchanted motor vehicles. Could anything have been more fortunate, she remarked as we went along, than meeting you? It was not fortune, I declared. It was fate. I called you up. You were in bed. I called again. You were out. Your mother answered the first time and then the maid, but all the Capulets could not keep me from your garden. Silly, she said, but her eyes shone. And after we had walked a few steps in silence, she said, Andy doesn't talk to me like that. And if he did? Oh, but he couldn't. He was dreadful last night. He tried to make me say I'd marry him. And when people tried to make me do things, well, I never do them. I told him I was tired of him, that I hoped he would stay away from me forever, that I wasn't to be bought. Her breathless, vehement voice came to a sudden stop. Her eyes were full of tears. I wish, I said, that I had beaten him up while I had a chance. When did you have a chance? I told her. At Olga's. Oh, no wonder he was in a temper, Jerry, but I am glad nothing really happened. Mother would never have forgiven you. When I got home last night, I cried and cried. I told Mother I wouldn't marry anybody I didn't love, that she must stop talking about Andy. That's why she is in bed this morning and drinking chocolate. When I go up, I shall have to sit and hold her hand and tell her I'm sorry. But are you sorry? Her forehead was ruffled. Not about Andy, but I am sorry to hurt Mother. She's a darling, but she doesn't know how I feel. About what, Mimi? About you, Jerry. She made her confession frankly, beautifully, with only the rose in her cheeks and her hurried breath to tell of her agitation. I don't know whether I am in love with you or not, Jerry, but I know that I want to be with you. I want to talk to you. I've got all your letters in a little box. I've never saved any other man's letters. Oh, to be told that with all the world about us, I wanted to be in the middle of a wood. Dearest, I'm not sure that I ought to be saying this, Jerry. It is wonderful to hear you saying it. But it can't come to anything. We'll make it come to something. Swinging along by her side, everything seemed possible. The sun shone on us. The world moved towards our twin destinies. The future was ours. Well, we bought the spool of silk. We bought indeed 2 spools, one for me. I shall carry it in my pocket, Mimi, in memory of this morning. I took her finally to her corner, and we parted with a hand clasp which left me tingling. Then I stood and watched her until the big door of the dingy house closed upon her. On my way home, I passed an old church and went in. It was Roman Catholic, and I had entered few edifices of that faith, but I wanted to be on my knees. God and Mimi. The old belief linked with my new-found happiness. There was the fragrance of incense, the thin gold line of candles on the altar, the lights of other little candles at various shrines, the dimness, the silence. End of Chapter 5. From the novel Peacock Feathers by Temple Bailey,